Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Writer's Bunkhouse, the official Four Horsemen Publications podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson, and joining me today is Amanda, who grew up in a haunted house and having a father who loved horror set the stage for her creative life. This urban fantasy author has been writing since her teen years, blending horror, fantasy, and the paranormal. Amanda balances a day job, her writing, her family, and helps her husband run a board game group, YouTube channel, Tabletop Misfits, local to Southwest Florida, and a total geek. You can also find her at conventions, either as an attendee or a vendor guest. Amanda, welcome to the podcast. How were you after the hurricane?
Hi, thank you for having me. The hurricane was a bit of a shock with all of the scheduling. We're doing okay. We have power back, we have internet. Some people fared a lot worse. We don't live in a flood zone. We did pretty well. No
Good.
major damage other than shingles flying off.
I am glad everyone's safe and fine.
Mhm.
As we get started, tell us a little about yourself.
Like you said when you were reading the introduction, I am wife, mom, geek. I have a day job and I turned 50 in 3 weeks. So, never too old to give up on your dreams.
Absolutely. I always like to start at the beginning. So let's talk a little bit. Tell me where you grew up and what kind of music did your family listen to when you were a kid? And then after that, we're going to talk about were you a family of readers, okay?
I grew up in the South, either in Virginia around the DC area or near Atlanta.
Okay.
And the Atlanta, Georgia home is the one that was haunted. The music we listened to growing up, I tended to listen to the music of my time. So Gen X baby, totally early 80s, Duran and Rat and yes, Rush, huge influences. My parents tended to opt more towards easy listening.
Okay.
So that was our music.
So I think one of the things that I find as I interview people and ask that question, they fall in two categories. The people that kind of embraced their parents' music, and as they grew into a teenager and college, they just expanded their horizon, and others who rejected their parents' music totally, and then later, like when they were 30, decided that that Johnny Cash guy my dad liked, he has a little something. Were you first or second?
I think I've never, except at Christmas time, I will admit Perry Como, Andy Williams, great at Christmas.
Okay.
Not so much with
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller talks about when he hears a young person saying they like classic rock, he chastises them like, no, you should find your own music that your parents can't stand because that's the whole spirit of rock and roll,
There
right?
you go.
That's good. How about reading? Were you guys a lot of readers growing
Oh,
up?
my dad loved history, especially nonfiction, anything about World War II or the Civil War. He was hugely interested in.
Okay.
My mom loved mysteries and those sensationalized romances like Danielle Steele, Jackie Collins. She introduced me to Agatha Christie, Ed McBain. My dad, if he did tread into fiction, was usually like Tom Clancy
Okay.
or Stephen King.
And what about you? Who were some of your favorite writers or books as you grew up, Amanda?
I have one, it's a compilation of nursery rhymes and fairy tales. It's
Yeah.
the first book my dad bought for me when he found out my mom was pregnant, and
Yes.
it's called Young Years. I still have that book. I have a book of poetry that I've had for I don't know how long, as long as I can remember, called Silver Pennies.
Oh, cool.
Those are my heartstring favorites
Yeah.
because they have such fond memories. When I got to middle school, Barbara
Mhm.
Hambley was definitely a big inspiring person for me.
Yeah.
Got me thinking more along the lines of maybe I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
There were people out there writing stories what I like to see. Somebody who grew up on the stop motion skeletons of Harryhausen and the Clash of the Titans, I was always so big into that. Seeing it in print and not just a Nancy Drew book or one of my parents' Ed McBain's or Tom Clancy or Danielle Steele. It was something that spoke to me more.
Well, Amanda, did you know you always wanted to write?
Yes. I've always been in the poor health side of things
Okay.
uh, since I was a kid. I was in a wheelchair at the age of 3. Being somewhat sick, my parents were very protective. School was an outlet, friends were an outlet, but also when I'm sick on the couch, you either have TV and there's only so far Lone Ranger will go in reruns, at least back in 1980.
Mhm.
I liked to daydream and make up stories, even before I knew how to write. As I got older and learned to write, I started doing that. I would play stories with my friends, and I had a dollhouse to play them out with, and all the girly kind of stuff that we have, Barbie dolls, etc. I always loved making stories. I was always thinking in my head, what can I do? And what kind of person is this? And what's entertaining? What makes me daydream?
Do you think that's something you were born that was just innate into you, Amanda?
I would say yes,
Okay.
because it has always been a passion of mine to
Okay.
just create stories.
Yeah, I know that to speak of Stephen King makes the joke when people ask where do you get your story ideas, and I keep them in a small chest along with a child's heart or something.
Yeah.
The reality is that everything can lead to a story if your mind thinks that way. I wasn't ill as a child, but I was always overweight. We moved a lot when I was a child. My dad was in the army. We would move every year or so. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned very quickly that if you made friends, either they would be moved away because their father would get
Uh-huh.
reassigned or my dad would, but books never went away.
Exactly.
You always, whether it was paperback, whether it's Hardy Boys or the Timber Trail Writer Club or these choose your own adventure books.
Oh gosh.
And so I just developed this desire to read, and books were just always my constant companion. So it's similar to that with you, correct, Amanda?
Yes, I was not quote unquote military brat, and that is not,
Oh, that's the correct term.
I was not a military brat, but I was a government brat. My parents worked for FAA
Okay.
and Civil Aeronautical Medical Institute.
Yeah.
So we bounced around too.
And you did that. As you're thinking of this and coming up with your stories, when did you decide you wanted to start writing them down? Or was that something you always did?
Always did. That
Always did.
was that was something that from the time I really could, and really once I got a computer it became way easier. Even in spiral notebooks at school, free time, friends were
Hmm.
doodling or passing notes and I'm just sitting there writing. I do that to this day. If there's paper, I'm writing on it.
Who was your first audience?
My parents.
Yeah. Did they encourage you?
They did, actually. I have to give that to them. They were very encouraging of the writing.
Mm.
That was one thing they thought would be perfectly suited to me. Many of my other childhood dreams of jobs, not so much,
Yeah.
because if you're in and out of PT to learn to walk again, which I was 3 times,
Mm.
you're not exactly going to be a detective.
Right.
You're not going to be a cop. It just does not compute. So
And when did you start sharing it with people besides your parents?
I started sharing things with friends in high school. As I got older, BBS services, bulletin board systems, back in the early baby days of the internets, I would play Vampire the Masquerade with
Okay.
friends and we'd do it in an IRC channel.
Sure.
And that was a huge help for me in creating characters and B, learning dialogue. Because
Hmm.
a lot of the dialogue I'd written to that point was very constructed,
Yeah.
proper grammar, no contractions, things like
Yeah.
that. And that's not how actual people speak. And I couldn't get out a lot of times to listen to people having conversations, casual conversations. So I did that, and that really helped develop ability to do dialogues and cut down a little on the descriptions.
I think I've heard two different stories. Some people giving advice to writers will say, stay away from fan fiction because it's a warm, comforting meal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to challenge you. It's not going to stretch you. And other people say, no, writing is writing, and you're going to get better as you do it. Do you have an opinion either way on that?
I think writing is writing, and you're going to get better as long as you're practicing.
Yeah,
Fan fiction definitely has a place. I don't think it's bad. I may not necessarily think it's always worthy of being professionally published, but I do think it definitely has a place in the world because people love writing it, people love
yeah,
reading it. And yes, it is a comfort blanket, but sometimes we need those.
yeah. One of the things that and I was not on a bulletin board, but I was on an amateur press association, an APA.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who may not, once again, sounds totally dated, but what we would do is write short stories, or if you're an artist, draw comics or art, and then you would critique other people's stories and send it to a central mailer. The central mailer would put them all together in one issue and mail it back to you. One of the things that we were very kind to each other
Mm-hmm.
because no one was doing this for a living. Very few of us knew we wanted to do this for a living. And so it
Right.
was a really safe space. And so I had a friend who started sending me stuff. This is years later. And I would, oh, this is great, Tom. And he's, no, I don't want you to tell me it's great. I need you to read it and tell me what's wrong with it. That was unusual for me. And I realized that he wanted that feedback. I don't know if this panel's confusing, or I don't understand how you got from point A to point B. Talk to me a little bit about your experiences with feedback as you started working with these bulletin boards and working with other people.
I would definitely encourage and welcome constructive criticism if I
Yeah,
was doing something wrong. If somebody didn't think the
yeah,
character should do that because of A, Y, and Z, then please tell me. I've always been open because I've always wanted to try to improve. I am not the best thing out there,
sure.
and I'm well aware of it. There's always room to grow, room to improve. So there's always that constructive criticism that is welcome. But if you're just going to say this sucks and not give me a reason, then I might argue with you.
And not to interrupt Amanda, but it's one thing if they say, I don't think the character would wear that blue shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you established earlier that blue was a symbol of blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good catch. Or,
Mm-hmm.
well, I just don't think they do that. I'm writing the character. I get to choose that. Right.
Yeah,
So there's a difference between, and I often talk about that when you see people criticizing books or movies or TV shows about this isn't where I'd take the story. And I always go, then go write your own story.
exactly.
This is the story this creative team wanted to tell.
Exactly. And that's what I do.
Yeah,
I tell stories, and that's probably the greatest piece of advice I think a teacher ever gave to me. Mr. Vernon in Robinson High, he took me aside and told me, don't write what other people tell you to write. Write what you want to see. The things that you want to see on the bookshelves that you would take down and spend your money on. And That's what you should be writing, not what other people tell you the markets are, which I thought for a man telling a 14-year-old this was great advice. And I've always kept that in my mind and in my heart, because he was probably the teacher that influenced me the most and gave me the most encouragement, gave me the most structure as far as what we had to turn in every week. He definitely loved writing. He's an author as well. I can't say enough about the man. He was great.
What's some other advice that he gave you that sounds like we all have those teachers that are amazing to us, so important to our growth. Talk to me a little bit more about him.
Dan Werner was an incredibly kind man. He was English teacher and creative writing teacher at Robinson High in Fairfax, Virginia. He would give these handouts, and I think I still have a file with mine in it, but it would be, you don't have a thesaurus as part of your school stuff, so here's another way to say this. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be a bunch of different, say, if it's blue, azure, peacock, different things.
Yeah.
Instead of saying said, whispered, yelled, growled, screamed, things like that. He really helped. He wanted to help those of us that were there for the writing, because there were a handful of us and there were a few that were just there because it was an easy A.
Sure.
But for those of us that were there and put our hearts into it, he had a lot to offer us. And all we had to do was listen.
That's amazing. That's a wonderful tribute. You've always had a desire to tell stories.
Mhm.
Did you know that's what you wanted to do when you grew up?
From the time I
Always?
was 11 years old, people would ask me what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a published author.
Wow. After you were told you couldn't be a detective or
At 9 years old,
ballerina or
that was, my
yeah,
mom was like, no, that's not realistic.
what was the first thing you had published, Amanda?
Do school projects count?
Sure.
In fifth grade, I wrote a story for parent night, and the teachers made books of them and stuff like that. About, I don't know, that qualifies as published, and it was a
Yeah.
terrible story. I've had a lot of growth since the age of 10, but really the only things I've looked at publishing, other than a couple of poems that I think I submitted when I was a teenager, was this series, the
Okay.
Life After series.
So let's talk about that. Was there and I'm a big believer in the road to Damascus moment, right? And
Yeah.
and sometimes there isn't one, and that's okay, but was there a moment when you knew you wanted to write this series? Was it fully formed in your head, or was there just a nibble of an idea and you built around it?
There was an idea, and it sprang from two sources.
Okay.
One was a what if question, and one was a dream I had. The
Okay.
what
Please
if
share both.
question, yeah, absolutely. The what if question was, love the paranormal. I loved when all those ghost hunting shows were becoming more and more popular. So I was
Right.
watching Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Paranormal State, all of them. And much to my husband's chagrin, I would just sit there and listen to these snippets of EVPs that they would catch and see maybe half caught a shadow or something like that. Never anything concrete. I totally crossed over. This is what it's like on the other side. I've always believed in the existence of the ghosts because I lived in a haunted house. I had a gift as a child that I grew out of, where I actually could see them and speak to them. I know ghosts exist.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Talk to me a little bit about growing up in that and you're seeing these people from the other side.
Where I was living at the time, it was a small town outside of Atlanta,
Okay.
and it was a brand new subdivision when we moved in 1978. It was built on top of a Civil War battlefield. Sherman's March to the Atlantic,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a Confederate soldier. He was 16 when he died. He was blonde, and he had he was the oldest, two younger brothers and a younger sister. And he said I reminded him of his sister. And that's why he protected me. He would hang out with me and play, and he would check on me at night. And my mother would say she heard his footsteps on the stairs. We had a very particular set of stairs that had landings at different sets. She could hear the footsteps going up the stairs, pausing, going up the next set, pausing, going up the next set. And then my door would either open or close. At one point, he stole her frying pan after she yelled at me. That was probably the best trick I have ever seen. I had to have been about 5.
Okay.
I don't even remember what I got in trouble for, but she yelled at me. And he somehow got her frying pan and disappeared it. And she tore that kitchen apart looking for the frying pan. My father comes home, tears the kitchen apart. They both do it simultaneously for a couple of weeks looking for this silly frying pan. Finally, they go out, get another frying pan. That's great. We've got it for a week. And then my mom opens the door cabinet to go make dinner, and there's the original frying pan right on top of the new
Oh, that's hilarious.
one.
Were you not afraid?
No, I was never afraid of him. He was very kind. He had a playful personality. And I like the fact that he checked on me and that he'd
Yeah.
defend me in his way. And it was very comforting. There were other spirits around,
Yeah.
but he didn't let them in.
Talk to me a little bit about that, Amanda.
My mom was Catholic,
Okay.
and it was exceedingly frowned upon
Sure.
to talk about seeing those things, let alone encourage learning about them. But I did, when I was a teenager, start trying to learn about it. I couldn't tell you how I did it. I couldn't tell you what mechanism got flipped. I am sensitive, but I can't see them. I don't really communicate with them, but I can sense things that are around.
Okay.
And general intentions and motions. But back then, it was like breathing. I could see them.
So you mentioned that you're watching these ghost stories on TV and you're hearing the snatches of conversation, and that was part of the inspiration. Talk about what was the other.
The other was a dream.
Okay.
And that dream ended up being a good deal of what's in the second book, Dead Vessel.
Okay.
It was a woman who was a cop and was standing outside this college dorm. It was an old Victorian that had been turned into a college dorm. And her brother had been murdered in there, and she could see his ghost in the window. And she kept trying to get to him, and she couldn't. That, partnering with the what if question, spawned a 5-book series so far.
Yeah. So you've got this idea. How did you go from having the idea to putting book on paper?
I sat down and went, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I need to flesh out what this is more than just what the dream was and the what if question. The what if question I'd been playing with for a couple of months before I had that dream. And I decided, hey, November's coming up, National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
I'll see what I can do with this then. I started trying to flesh out the characters and set up. I'm not a plotter, but I'm not a pantser.
Okay.
And so I'm what they call a plantser. I do bullet point outlines for what I want to happen, and
Yeah.
I keeps the characters in line. And then I just let it go, because sometimes that creative spark you get at 2 a.m. or 4 p.m. is exactly what you need to connect a couple dots you didn't know need to be connected.
Yeah.
So, and I wrote it during, I think I finished it 3 weeks into NaNoWriMo. I got the first draft done of the first book in 3 weeks, and I still had ideas flowing. I was very lucky, and I didn't stop. The next book was written in the next 3 weeks. and then it was Christmas. It was an incredible kissed by a muse moment. When I went back to edit it in February, I got caught up reading it and I wasn't cringing. And I usually do cringe at my own things. So I was like, maybe I've got something here.
Mm-hmm.
So
What was the next step? You've gotten this work done. How did you get it published and go from there?
I did a lot of editing and rewrites on my own. And then I got lucky enough to win a contest for free professional editing.
Okay.
So I got that done. And then I had a very lucky meeting at Tampa Bay Comic Con with Neo Edmond, who
Okay.
is an actor and an author. He is a self-published author, and he was there advocating on it's great to be published with these big houses, but unless you're Stephen King, they're not really going to put anything into publishing or marketing your book.
Yeah,
So why not be in control and do it yourself?
that makes
I was
sense.
I was thinking of self-publishing, and I talked to him afterwards. I was like, I'm so scared to push that button and just put my work out there. What if it's not good enough?
Yeah,
What if I fall? And he
sure.
said, but what if you fly? I got my nerve, and on my eldest child's birthday, I pushed the button. And I was very lucky after that.
What has surprised you about this process of writing and telling this story?
I think how people have responded to the characters.
Okay.
People tell me that they love this character or that character. And that does influence me a little bit because it's like, I know this character has a fan base. So
Mm-hmm.
let me put him in there a little more. This person has a fan base. So let me make sure they got a spot in here.
Let's pretend we're at the convention and
Mhm.
you're at your table and someone's walking by. Give us your elevator pitch. Tell them about the series and why they should try it.
It's an X-Files meets Ghost Adventures. You start with the book with the character is a ghost. It's a ghost
Okay.
story from the ghost's point of view.
Okay. And
That's
you knew you wanted to do that? That was important to you?
yes,
You
that
thought
was
the right way to start the story?
I had originally written it before her death,
Yeah.
and I finally realized that no, I needed it to start with her dead and she could have flashbacks. It needed to start with her death because that was really when the story starts.
Okay.
That's what the whole thing's about is she's dead. So why are we covering the life that she had before she's dead?
So who is your heroine?
Cadence Riley.
Okay. Tell me about her.
She is a little hot-headed. She loves to think outside the box. She's fiercely independent, does not like to be told what to do, and is very clever, but also with the thinking outside the box and the hot-headedness tends to sometimes weep before she looks, which can get her into trouble occasionally. She was the kind of person who lived life, but not really. When she
Okay.
goes back to see her apartment to say goodbye to it, she realized she really didn't live in it. She just existed. That was where she slept, showered, had
Mm-hmm.
breakfast. Her life was at the precinct. She was a workaholic. She would often take holiday assignments so that the other cops with families could take off. Her father was in the army, and her mom was a stay at home mom. The dad was very patriotic, Cadence, Army Cadence, and her middle name is Liberty. And her brother is Samuel Patrick. I tried to keep the theme of that patriotism in their naming. She wanted to join the army to protect and serve like her daddy did. He said, absolutely not. Am I having you in those kinds of situations? Her response to that, especially after her brother's murder, was to say, okay, fine, I'll be a cop.
Yeah.
And they went through the roof, but nobody stopped her.
And how is, as she's now in the afterlife, I take it she doing similar kind of work?
There is a force that makes sure that the haunting spirits don't give away too much to the living.
Okay.
There are rules in place that they're not allowed to say this, that, or the other. They can give away hints. They can maybe full body apparition for a split second, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they have to be very careful. Keep the mystery, but keep their interest, is
Okay.
the rule. If a ghost hunting team comes into your location, you can mess around with them, but don't hurt them and don't give away too much. In the first book, some things were set into motion by Cadence's new boss without her partners knowing, just to test them out, because other things have been going on, working as a detective or as the Supernaturals version of the FBI, the NHD, the non-human division.
Okay.
They have been getting stronger. Those are the spirits that we would call demons or elementals, people that were never people. I don't like to get into categorizing demon. I just say non-human.
Okay.
We try to be non-denominational, that kind of thing. The non-humans have been getting stronger, acting up more. Things have been getting weirder, and only the
Okay.
high levels know that. And so they are testing a new team, and Snow and Cadence are one of the pairs of that new team without knowing it.
Okay. You mentioned Paranoia, the X-Files. What kind of feedback have you gotten?
People like it. When I give them the elevator pitch and I say that it's from a ghost story from the ghost's perspective,
Yeah.
the usual feedback I get is that's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Nobody's seems to have created a book that or anything like that was from the actual ghost's perspective.
Sure.
We do evolve into the humans at some point, the ghost hunting team. The focus is on Cadence and what she goes through, what the team goes through. Snow
Mm-hmm.
is her partner, and then she does make contact with her brother. And there are a lot of things going on, and all of them are surprisingly tied together in a wonderful little plot arc that covers the first 5 books. And that does wrap up on book 5, but I'm nowhere near done yet. And in closing that storyline, that overarching plot, I have opened up a couple others.
Okay. So the Life After series, the
Yeah.
first book, Waking Up Dead. What's next for you? What have you not done that you are interested in doing?
I am trying out a paranormal romance.
Okay.
It's like a sister series to the Life After series. It's the same world building. The streams will cross. You'll see the characters interact a little bit, but this is the mortal realm supernaturals, the
Okay.
shifters, immortals, gods and goddesses in human form, and vampires, the people that live with the humans and the mortal world, as opposed to just being in the spiritual plane.
Okay.
And because it's flesh, they can get a little spicy. And that's actually very new and something I am not entirely comfortable with.
Are you wanting, is that something that interests you, Amanda? You want to stretch your creative juices?
I'm also trying to learn script writing, which is an entirely different mindset
Yes, I can
and a
imagine.
different way of telling a story.
That's good. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to share how to reach you and everything, but I always like to ask this. Is there something I should have asked you that I haven't, Amanda?
I don't think so.
I had someone on my Bruce Springsteen podcast and we finished the podcast. I'd stopped recording and I said, I hope you had fun. And he goes, Oh, I did. And next time I'll tell you about when I got drunk with the E Street Band. What? How did you not tell me that story? One of the things in this series of interviews we're doing with the wonderful writers from Four Horsemen is I'm asking the question, as a writer, what would be your pick of a very well written song? Not necessarily your favorite song, but a song you think tells a great story or is incredibly well written.
I have two different answers for you.
Please give them both.
Okay, best written song, and I'm sure I will get hate, but I am a Shinedown fangirl. Get Up by them. I personally suffer from acute depression, acute anxiety. Get Up. I recite that song almost daily as a self mantra of just you might be bulletproof. You might surprise yourself. You're never going to climb that mountain if you don't try, if you're frozen. Just keep trying, keep going. You can do it. You're worth it and you're stronger than you think. I absolutely love the message of that song. And they did it for those who struggle with mental health because a couple of the people in the band do. And
Mm-hmm.
so it definitely has that truth to it
Mm-hmm.
that you can hear in the song. That people can write songs about all kinds of different things, but sometimes you have to have walked the walk and talked the talk to be able to make it sound authentic.
Okay.
As for what song has the best written story,
Yes.
and here I'm going to go to my Broadway lyrics. Les Miserables,
All right.
Javert Suicide.
Okay.
That song is after Javert has been chasing Valjean forever. He actually has him in his sights and he lets him go because Valjean is trying to save Marius. And then he's okay, that just turned everything I believe in on its head. How do I deal with this? His big opus song in the first half of it was Stars, and I look up to the sky and the stars are black and cold as I gaze into the void of a world that cannot hold. I'll escape now from that world, from the world of Jean Valjean. And a couple more lines and he goes over the bridge. The way that song is written tells the heartbreak of a man whose worldview has been shattered. Whether he was right or wrong, his whole world in that moment went up in flames. And he did the only thing he could think of to escape the fire around him, which was dive into the river and drown. I find that it is very effective, especially the way they stage it, but just the lyrics, listening to the music on its own, the lyrics, the orchestra, it's all so well done. The story in that song is so heartbreaking as you listen to this man who is now broken by the world, who always thought he was right and righteous, just giving up. It's heart shattering. It just pulls at you, it hurts. And while I like a lot of uplifting things, that to me has always stuck with me as such a powerful song because of the story it tells.
I love that. That's a great answer. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
I've got email links there. You can catch me on Facebook, Instagram. And as you mentioned earlier, I am with the Tabletop Misfits on YouTube. I'm usually not on camera much, but I'm around. You
I
can
feel
catch
like
my hands.
any final thoughts, Amanda?
I think it has been wonderful sitting down and talking with you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That is very sweet of you to say. Pull the curtain back a little bit. Amanda was a little nervous, and so I'm glad that I made her feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Thank you. This is so good. Waking Up Dead, the Life After series. The Life After series, first book is Waking Up Dead. There are 5 volumes available wherever you find books.
Mhm.
You can find it Four Horsemen Publications.com if you want more information about the wonderful stable of writers that
Mhm.
are on the Four Horsemen Publishing website. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can find me talking music on Set Lusting Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast. You can hear me talking about Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. and I talked John Hyatt on my Perfectly Good podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it. Amanda, I had such a great time talking to you. I now want to know more about Candace. I can't wait to read more about her. She sounds fascinating.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
thank you very much.
All right, listeners, be safe, be kind, and if you're feeling down or depressed, remember there is a good chance that you may not have read your favorite book yet.
Very
Goodbye.
true.